Welcome back. We're on the Daily Jase live show once again. It's been a while since I've invited a new guest onto the show, so I'm very excited. This next guest, I haven't actually had a long relationship with him. I met him through a LinkedIn post, and mainly what the post said was, "Hey, I've been cancelled off this podcast because I was going to share my ideas on leadership and the state of the world at the moment." And in that post, he mentioned that he got cancelled off the show, mainly because of his views and beliefs. I dug a little deeper and I couldn't find anything too controversial. So I thought, why not have him on this podcast and talk about cancel culture, leadership, all that good stuff, and just hear about his ideas on it. So it's my pleasure to welcome to the stage Grant Difford. Grant, how are you doing, mate?
I'm very good. Thank you for uncancelling me. I appreciate that. It's very kind of you.
No dramas. Yeah, it was a really interesting post, and I think it's a big topic, and it's becoming more and more prevalent as I'm looking through Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever it might be, on the media. People aren't as able to share their ideas these days. So before we get deeper into that topic, can you just share a little bit about yourself, your background, where you came from, and what you do at the moment?
So I'm founder of Awakened Giants. We specialize in the relationship between leadership and strategy. And I've been in this particular business for about 11 years. We started as a creative business, but my passion's always been people and critical thinking, which I know is rare nowadays. And led a really interesting life. Dad was in the military for 30 years. So I've got that exposure to a different world that most people don't see. And I came to New Zealand 15 years ago with a one-way ticket and $15,000 in the bank and never left. And, I'm passionate about this country, and I'm passionate about leadership, and I'm passionate about practicality. And that's maybe what gets me into trouble now and again, as you say, not really sure why.
So why did you pick New Zealand after the UK?
This is ridiculous. One of my colleagues I was working with at the time had been here on holiday. He said, "You'd love it." My sister-in-law had been on holiday. Said, "You would love it." And about 6 months later, my wife and I were watching TV one night, and we were living the typical British, 2 brand new cars, brand new house, and no life. We were like, "Screw it, let's go." And we were going to go to Canada. Because we thought it was closer. We just thought geography played a part. We realized it would take 5 years, and we don't really like waiting to achieve things. So went to our parents, said we're gonna jump on a plane and put everything in a container, rented our house, and we knew one Kiwi. So we turned up on his doorstep one day, and he said, "How long are you here for?" And we said, "Well, hopefully forever." And we became residents within about 6 months, I think it was, and never looked back. The reason we came is we didn't want to bring kids up in the UK. And we've never really turned back, and we've never wanted to be anywhere else. This is where we feel connected, where we feel like we belong. Even in recent times, those thoughts might have been challenged somewhat with what's going on in the world. But that's how we end up here. It's kind of part of our ridiculous story, to be honest. And basically, because we had one-way tickets and no jobs, once the money ran out, we were stuffed. So we had to work hard and find jobs and get on with it. So that's part of our Kiwi story, really.
So before Waking Giants, what did you get into first? When you arrived on the ground to earn that money, what were you doing?
So I trained as a graphic designer, where my wife and I met at university with graphic design degrees. And I ended up running a creative business within a big publishing house for a few years. And then I thought about getting out of the industry. It was sort of then the seed of doubt of really what I was trying to achieve was there. And every business I'd worked in, I'd always got up to board level or senior level, but never really felt like I could achieve what I wanted to. And my wife, I threw a Hail Mary for this really highly paid job in a creative agency, and I went and got it. And I wasn't happy. It was fine, but I realized the money wasn't what drove me. It was about a sense of purpose. My wife said one day, right, now or never, go build the thing. And Waking Giants was born. The core vision was always there, but I didn't really know what it looked like in reality. So we went from a couple of $100,000 per year income to pretty much nothing overnight. That teaches you some lessons, and over the years developed the business into to a version of what we have now. But it was about 3.5 years ago, I really made a decision to make Waking Giants the thing it is, which actually has been part of me discovering what I want to do in the world. And the two kind of came together. And that's really about purposeful leadership, about doing things that mean something. And I'm not talking about, non-capitalism. I'm pro-capitalism. I'm pro-profit. I'm pro-success and all those things. But I realized that we can do all these things with a real sense of purpose. And I think that's okay. And that's become my obsession, honestly, doing things with meaning. And that's the work I do, whether it be for our business or the people we work with. And purpose gives you a huge amount of clarity, but it also it makes things uncomfortable for some people because I'm laser focused on what I'm trying to achieve. And sometimes that means you have to have difficult conversations about what reality really is. And hence why we're talking, because it's
absolutely.
easy to have easy conversations, but people don't like to have hard conversations. It doesn't mean conflict. It means actually having a conversation about something that's meaningful and exploring what that means.
Yeah, and trying to find the truth, wherever that might be, of the crux of the problem. Is your wife in the journey with you? Is she in Waking Giants? Is she helping you run that? Or is that separate?
I hate to say it, but behind every good entrepreneur, there is a good person, man or woman. She was the one that really said, go for it. She's the one that's put up with, the years of being skint all the time, the years of using savings to pay the staff, the years of me wanting to give up. She asked me to give up a couple of times. She really did. And I really thought about it. But, I'm sat at home now and I now look at the house we've got and, where we live and the life we lead. And it wouldn't have been possible without those freedoms. And she's been in the journey. She's dipped in and out. But what we've done is we've designed a life where she can make choices about being there for our 8-year-old, nearly 9-year-old, being at our property. So really we've designed a life that works for both of us. And, she helps. She's the one that calls me out when I'm talking shit, and I know I am, but I just need a kick. But it's my baby, but it really is ours in reality. And we're 11 years in now, and she's never really truly once told me to give it up, So
awesome. So just zooming out a little, and what's your version of the events of how we came to meet? Because I read the LinkedIn post and then I invited you on the podcast. What actually happened from your point of view?
Oh, I can just share the facts with you if you want.
Go for it.
I reached out to someone, a guy I knew through the networks. I said, hey, look, you have people doing podcasts. I'd love to do one on leadership. Tell me if there's an opportunity. He said, yeah, love it. He said, actually, we'd like to do a regular thing. I'm like, cool. And he said, let's start next week or whenever it was. And I just flicked him a note and said, hey, when are we going to lock in a date? I'm pretty busy. Love to make sure we give it the time. And he called me, and I'd never talked to him before. He said, we're going to have a tough conversation. I said, I don't think we are going to have a tough conversation. It's about a podcast, And he said, one of the board have looked into you and are uncomfortable with your extreme views on. And I said, extreme views? I actually laughed because I found that really quite entertaining. And and said, "Oh, about religion and things like this," and I'm sort of scratching my head, and I was kind of confused, and I said, "So your leadership team don't want me to talk about leadership because of your perception of my personal views? That's just plain fucking stupid." And they were like, "Yeah, I'm sorry." And I said, "That's cool." I said, "Look, ultimate respect for you. You picked up the phone and talked to me." So I thought this guy's like legit. And I thought it was brilliant. Like, I thought it was fascinating in that. And obviously I'm looking at leadership and critical thinking and how we represent ourselves. And I was like, that's just stupid. I said, I'm talking about leadership. I'm talking about the principles of leadership and modern leadership. And that's just all a bit uncomfortable. There was some other stuff in behind the scenes, politically led, which I don't think I don't want to share because it's not my right to share. But that was how it went down. I was really stoked. I really celebrated it because I'm like, I've just been cancelled. That's cool. Like, I wondered what it was like I'm like a thousandth of a Joe Rogan or something. And so it got me really thinking about it. So what happens in these situations, the way I observe the work I do, I observe society. I love looking at things and then sort of trying to think it up. What is it like? So I thought, well, here's my thoughts on it. And you obviously read my post, and a lot of people read it and observed it and reached out to me and stuff. And to me, it's about observation. So the guy who called me, lovely guy, full of respect, and he said, "Look, one day we're going to do this. I want to make it happen. I want you on here, but right now it's just a bit too hard." So look, he operated with absolute integrity, and I told him that. But to me, it was too good because it was a piece of content that I wanted to share. So it's like, so a lot of my narrative, a lot of my thinking, a lot of my writing is about things that are actually happening. So they're not in books. They're not. So they're coming from real world. And with the work I do, some of the conversations are pretty interesting. So I use that to educate and to create conversation. So that's what happened. So the guy treated me with absolute respect. An unknown decided that I was extreme, particularly like when they said about our religious views and something. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God, but I believe in universal energy. I've got a client at the moment. She's she has faith. She believes in God, and we work beautifully together because we just said, look, here are our different faith systems. Cool, no problem. Like, what does it matter? So to me, what it said to me is like well, one, it was not true. Their point of view of my extreme views was kind of interesting, but also the fact that they weren't prepared to even engage with me in a deeper conversation to provide feedback. So look, we understand you don't like this government. Well, who does? Don't mention it. Like, having an actual conversation. And I'm like, okay, yeah. Like I've this client I talk about who believes in God. She doesn't like swearing, so I don't swear in front of her when I'm coaching her. Like, we can just be a little cleverer with this stuff. Like, we can be a bit more respectful. But if it gets too hard, we just go, "Oh, I'm out. I'm not even entering the conversation because I just it's too hard." And I think that's the problem, because we don't have. We're not allowing ourselves to have positive, challenging conversations. And when I say challenging, I don't mean there is a right and a wrong, a left and a right, a blue and a red if you're in the US. It's about sitting down and saying, okay, so there's challenge here. What does that look like? What does it feel like? I had one with a client on Friday and his team, and we just worked it through and we asked different questions. And, then you start to move forward. And I think that's the problem with cancel culture, is that it's shutting down the conversation. Now, we've got to exclude racism, prejudice, all of those things. I think we all agree that needs to be not shut down, but needs to be dealt with. But to shut people down that my ears are sensitive to that, I don't really want the truth. What are we doing? Like, this is making sense to anyone. Like, and I'm not being a grumpy old bastard at 42. I just think we need to be a bit cleverer, because I want a world where my daughter can actually express herself and not be removed from a situation. And she's the sweetest little human being in the world. But I'm going to bring her up to defend herself with her thoughts and her free thinking. And she's a woman. So she's got a bunch load of stuff to deal with that I don't. So, So that's sort of the premise of the challenge. But what it does to me is it makes me go harder. It makes me challenge it even more, because I think we're not having quality conversations anymore. We're not having critical thinking anymore. You know, we're a world of opinion, and the opinion is generally about my bias and what's in it for me. That doesn't
Yeah,
seem like a good platform for human development.
yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. I think that there's as we move forward, there's more opportunity to get into these echo chambers and find people that only think like yourself. You can go onto a Facebook group and follow the people you want to follow, or be drawn into political ideas that you more associate with, and by doing that, you only find people that think like you. But it's definitely having a detrimental, I guess, effect on having these conversations, and when we see people that don't think like us, there's that uncomfortable feeling. What do you think that the solutions are to these big issues?
Well, look, it's an interesting one. I think the way I'd term it is observation. So a lot of people would say self-awareness and all this, self-help stuff. But something I do is self-observation. And I hate to think, so we've got that little voice in our head that, tells us all these stories all the time about the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything like that. But for me, it's about observation. And so for argument's sake, I'll give you an example. So February was my birthday. And I fall into that trap. It's summer, a few drinks in the evening. Last year was tough, blah, 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 blah. So, I was like, well, I'm going to take, as a present to myself for February, I'm going to not drink. End of. Nice, simple. But what I did is I observed my behavior in relation to alcohol. So things like, when did I want to have a drink, or what were the triggers, what were the mechanisms, when I was in the supermarket, social events, etc. And what was really interesting, and I shared this with my wife, and I sat down and I said, I observed my feelings and my reactions and my understandings of alcohol. And in the end, what I did observe is that it wasn't that I needed it. I chose it as an outlet for certain things. And actually, drinking alcohol is not bad. It's the way we do it is bad. And this becomes around observing my own behaviors and asking myself questions. So if we look at what the solutions are, is if you look at people in daily life now, Napoleon Hill called them drifters. There's a high percentage of our population that we're in this paradigm. We're in, everything is easier nowadays. We don't have to hunt for our food. Our iPhones do all the work for us. We don't have to critically think. And I think the problem is that if you look at James Clear's Atomic Habits, our brain is looking for shortcuts constantly. We're looking to make life easier. I mean, you don't think about driving your car. It's there. It's in your brain. What we're not doing is actually trying to short circuit that and go, oh, why am I doing that? Why do I think that way? Why do I observe that way? And I think that's really interesting. But that takes a huge amount of self-reflection. And that's something I learned from my best friend about, 8 years ago. When we self-observe, we look at the good and the bad and the ugly in ourselves. That's usually reflected in society. And I think that's important that we have that. So self-reflection, self-observation, and realize that we aren't that important when it comes down to it. So for argument's sake, if like I was in this meeting on Friday, a few people in the room didn't agree with my email that I'd sent, and they didn't agree with the words. I went, okay, interesting. Like, that's cool. What do I do? Do I get defensive, or do I take that as feedback and I take it as learning? We don't do that. We don't self-reflect. We don't learn. We don't think we're wrong. We've got, anyone who's got the vaccine thinks they're better than the people without the vaccine. We're on team vaccine. Like, we're doing this team thing. Everyone wants to be on the winning team. So I think if we start to observe, we observe our actions, our thoughts, our language, the words we use, the way we interact. Sometimes we're not that great. We're not that nice. We're not doing very nice things. Then you've got the confrontation of going, oh, maybe I'm the problem. No one wants to hear that, and no one wants to have that conversation with themselves. But when you do have the conversation with yourself, when you do adopt some of these principles, it frees you up. It frees you from all this nonsense. For me, most people are like, oh, well, you'll be cancelled. I'm like, that's amazing. Tick, goal achieved. Because it means I've said something that provoked a reaction that wasn't controversial in any shape or form. And that means I've got a voice. So then my brain goes, well, okay, if I have a voice and people are interested, well, let's make sure we do a good job of it. So self-reflection, self-awareness, I think we've got to get out of our own way. I think we've got to understand how important habits are and tribalism is. Like there's a lot of people right now over the last 2 years were never on the winning team. Suddenly they get an opportunity to be on the winning team, and the winning team shouts at the other team, and that's how they feel whole, whatever team you're on. And if we look at football, you're chanting against the other team because you're the winning team. And I think a lot of people have realized that they don't feel any value necessarily in their own lives, and they latch onto something and they grab that, and whereas if they actually sat down and go, what do I believe in? What is my purpose? How do I want to operate within the world? Life becomes a lot easier, like genuinely easier, because you find what's meaningful to you rather than sitting on Twitter or Facebook screaming at each other, because that's not helpful. It's disgusting, actually, some of the way people have operated in the last couple of years. The way they've talked to other humans is just gross. And I don't know how we got here. I know how we move forward, but I don't know how we got here. That's still something tricky for me to understand personally. I'm not bright enough to crack that one yet.
Yeah, you packed a lot into that answer.
Sorry,
I think
you've got me in my happy space now.
Just going on your point, there's no, it was good. It was good. I think that you talked about how people are talking to each other in the ways that are pretty disgusting, actually. But I think, I guess, being behind a screen gives people, I guess, it gives them a little bit of a defense from talking to people face to face, so they feel more comfortable to share their thoughts unfiltered. They just go for it. It's this keyboard warrior mindset where they wouldn't do that face to face because people don't like that confrontation. They don't like that uncomfortable feeling. But if someone does attack them, their primal response turns on, because no one wants to be wrong. It's not a feeling be wrong, no, but there's always learnings that come from being wrong and hearing the other side, and you can take those words to heart, or you can say, okay, that was total rubbish, I'm going to put that one to the side.
But also bearing in mind, we've weaponized words. So words are now, taken on this whole new thing that it depends on where you're sat with what preposition you have as to what the word means. So I think that's the problem now. Like, like ridiculous things. Like I've been in conversations recently, some of my work, and I've wanted to use the word mandate in context of something we're doing. And I don't use it anymore because the word mandate is now taken on this really gross, controlling, yada, yada, yada. We won't bother wasting any time on that. But now that word is now weaponized, and, we use words like racist and all these harsh, evocative words. But often it's like when we lash out if we're hurt, humans are good at lashing out. If we're hurt, we lash out. And online, it's really easy because I'm going to lash out. I'm going to show you. The problem is no one wants to be wrong, but we don't all have to be right. I'm not right all the time. No one is. What the problem is that this team mentality in the most unfortunate of circumstances has actually created division. But it's everywhere. It's in everything. But it's not. We're not wanting to have a conversation. We want to choose a side. And as soon as we stop choosing a side, then we can have a conversation. I mean, if you look at the US, there is red and there is blue. It's part of their DNA. It's a terrifying thing. And, I'm a huge fan of Joe Rogan. Don't tell anyone because I can't do that anymore, apparently. And I like observing the political position in the US because it's so unique. It's fascinating to just to watch, and it is like I've laid my bed here, or I've laid my bed here. I don't really get that because we need to evolve. Like we need to um, we need to be, I don't know what's the word. We need to be really agile nowadays. Things change so quickly. I'm 42 now, and I have moments thinking, man, I'm done. I can't keep up. I'm looking at NFTs. I'm looking at crypto, and I'm like, man, am I slow? Or things change so quickly that it just doesn't seem like a good idea just to be so staunch on your ideas that you can't move from them. But at the same time, I think we're missing going back to some cool old ideas like, manners, of dealing with conflict in a conversation face to face, and then ended up shaking a hand. Like, I'm getting to that age now where I think actually some of the older principles that my parents certainly taught me and the military taught me is accountability, respect, courage. Um, they they don't mean the same thing anymore. I don't think. I don't think courage is the same anymore. I don't think conversation is the same anymore. Can it be? Yes, because the main problem is we think the world is the internet. It's not. Go out and have real conversations, and I think that's the problem. I think we're all living alter egos online, and particularly for me is to try and be as close to reality as I physically can. The way I'm talking to you now, I would talk to you the way if we were sat having a beer, and that's my mission, is to make sure there are not two versions of Grant. Look, do I self-censor a little bit like that lady who doesn't like swearing? Of course, but that's respect. That's just courtesy. But am I gonna, can I look my wife or my daughter in the eyes, or my staff or my friends, and know I'm being me? As long as I'm as close to that as possible, same online, and because I think people are doing this. This is the real me, and this is the online me. I think that's one of our challenges, because they're not the same thing for many people, are they? I mean, once again, sorry, I'm ranting, but like this
No,
stuff
no,
is
no.
important. It's
It's good
so
to hear
important.
these ideas. Absolutely. I'm actually, I have this struggle because I love tech and I love the online world. I love social media. I think it's a brilliant tool, but at the same time, I realize the societal effects that's having, where, like you say, people are being one person online and they're being another person in person, and that causes its own troubles. And you have these divisive ideas and cultures, and well, the ideas aren't the divisive bit. The divisive bit is that people can't seem to understand the side and where they're coming from. Because at the end of the day, everyone wants similar big ideas, like that we want a better future for future generations. We want to have a good quality of life. It's just the strategy to get there is a bit different, and what that looks like. And but those underlying values, we want to be good people. We want to do what's right. Those don't seem to change, or if they do, it's a very small minority. People at large are good people. I tend to believe that.
I believe that, and I mean that's why Awakened Giants is named. I believe everyone has this potential in them. They just don't necessarily know it, and that's the root of it. So I think a lot of the people that are challenged, they're hurting in some way. We have to have empathy. They are fearful because of X. They're fearful because of Y. They are fearful because they don't know. Remember, humans are predisposed to lean into fear. Our brains are literally wired to look for fear, and I assume it's back to our ancestors and fight and flight. But if you imagine the exacerbation of fear everywhere, we're in this perpetual state of anxiety. As a human, it's not good for us, and actually that makes good people act in a different way. I don't know that I agree with you. I don't think they fundamentally change. I think they just display some challenging parts of their personality that maybe with some of the influences that we're seeing nowadays, they wouldn't operate like that. And I I think that's interesting. I think, and I think that's where relationships and in various shapes and forms are maybe unrecoverable. Some of them have, there are people in my life that I look at differently now because of the way they've treated others in the last 2 years. I've got to be straight with you, because I don't want those people in my life if they are not solid and they're not. Look, we all do things we regret. None of us are perfect. I'm just glad there was no social media when I was a kid. I mean, a lot of people my age do, but some people have made their bed, and some people, some of those relationships won't be recoverable. And I think it's very sad, because when we look back, we'll realize it was something we could have controlled, the way we reacted to various things. And I think the next generation is going to really struggle with it, because some of these principles and ideas are basically being beaten out of our education system. So we will have kids who don't have some tools that they should have. I genuinely believe that. And I've spent some time on the board of a school, 2.5 years, and our kids are, they're gonna be some tools in their armory that are missing, unless parents sort of take on that role. I genuinely believe that, which means our next generation, how are they going to deal with what's in front of them? Because it'd be very different from my generation, your generation. But it's not all bad, because I think there are our young ones, like, my daughter, she's a sweet little thing. Her whole DNA is to help people. So my faith in the future is her. We're just going to make sure she gets through it without any nonsense. She doesn't get deterred from that empathy that she has, and that's the solution. I think that's where it's all going to be fine. It's just going to be a rocky road.
Yeah. I agree with a lot of what you said, or almost all of it. I think that people, they do the best they can with the tools they have got. So their upbringing, their social circles, their resources, their financial situation. I always fall back on that, and I tend to think, try and look for the good in everyone. And if they do something against me, that I try and think to myself, okay, so they were just trying their best, I'll give them benefit of the doubt. In future, I'll learn from it. I may not deal with them in the same way, because everyone has to look out for themselves as well. No one likes to get burnt too many times, but
No.
I try and come from it from an understanding position. So it's interesting what you mentioned about how you're on the board of a school, because I think that the next generation, there's they, like you say, they don't have the tools needed to move forward. So what tools do you think we need in order to educate them for the new world, or so they're better equipped for it?
Well, I mean, actually, so when I was on the board, I actually did some leadership stuff with the kids. I was invited in. Luckily, we've got some really fantastic, well, mostly fantastic teachers. So I went and worked with sort of 6-year-olds all the way up to sort of 12, 13-year-olds, and mostly we focused on the relationship between each other and teamwork and the way we communicate and stuff like that. So, I'm a huge fan of sports. I think sports plays a huge part for lots of kids in communication skills, leadership skills, etc. But I think we've got this sanitization of things going on, and we need to teach kids, for argument's sake, one of my daughter and one of her friends were being, there's some silly stuff coming back when they eventually went back to school. And my daughter, one of them was having a tough day, and she looked after them, even though she was one of the culprits for being mean to them. And the great thing is that evening, the two parents got their kids to phone my daughter and apologize. Now, to me, that's the fundamentals, because kids are kids. They got to learn, but the parents taught them that you don't treat other kids like that. And they got them on the phone, and listening to two 8-year-old girls apologizing was the cutest thing ever. So I don't know that the kids necessarily need the tools. I think as adults have got to take a lot of responsibility. I mean, a big problem we've got nowadays is that schools are essentially used as daycares. And there's a bunch of parents that think it's the teacher's job to bring the children up. Now, I vehemently disagree with that. There are only two people in this world that are responsible for my daughter, myself and my wife. End of. Everyone else plays a bit part, but the buck stops with us. And I think we've got to, that's where we need to start, actually. We can teach the kids anything they want, but if they have those poor influences at home, go figure. And I think the system is not dealing with that conversation. I mean, genuinely, I've witnessed conversations where a parent wanted the head teacher to deal with the child's behavior at home. Now think about that. That's removing your responsibility for your own child. So I think with the kids, I think we've got to get them practical. I think we've got to get them. I've developed this thing where they move across the hall using different implements, and then I take them away and I stop them talking and I get them talking and I do team leaders and really silly things. But also what I found out is kids adopt data when it's physical and it's moving and they take it on. And we found kids operating differently within an hour of doing stuff like that. So we've got to get real practical with kids, really show them, get them stuck in. We've got to let them, once again, I'm sounding old. We've got to let them fall over. We've got to let them eat mud. We've got to let them live. And we've got to let them learn how to code at 5, and we've got to let them use Zoom at 5 or whatever. We can have both, but we cannot have kids that are so connected to technology that they can't function in the real world. You know what I mean? Like, I think we can have all of it, but we have to, we like, my daughter talks to her grandparents in the UK because they can't be here at the moment. So that's amazing. She talks to them and she chats to them. But equally, when we're out or when she's playing with other kids and stuff, she's got those skills. So she can operate in both worlds. And I think if we don't have that blend of operating in the real world, especially that 3 through to 7, they're the years you've got to lock these ideas in. After 7, essentially, a child is pretty much programmed for life. Statistics and the science proves. So if we get our kids really locked in with good ethics, good values, good practices, good habits, by the time they're 7, they're going to be good kids. If we don't, then you're going to spend the next few years trying to deal with that. So practicality. We got to get our kids practical. I think I'm very biased on that because we're a very practical family. So I'm aware of my bias, but kids need to be able to do them. They shouldn't just be able to do this. I'm sorry, but that's not
absolutely.
The brain functions. It's just not true.
Yeah. I'm always thankful to my mother because when I was young, me and my siblings, I have 2 brothers. Sometimes we wouldn't get along as kids do. But what she'd do is she'd sit us on the couch. It was the most painful thing at the time in the world. Me and the other brother that weren't getting along, we'd sit down on the couch and we'd have to say, I'm upset because, and then rattle on and just have that discussion. And it sucked. And I hated it at the time, but we had to do that every time we fought. We couldn't just go mum or dad. We had to sit down on the couch. And normally we resolved it like that because we didn't want to have that conversation. But moving forward into my adult life, now I can have that discussion easy off the bat. When I want, how I want, is awesome. And some people just can't, I've realized as I've grown up. Some people hate saying why they're upset to other people. And I think that's a huge problem. The other thing is you talked about online, offline world. I worry about when we have this new online world with Web3, the metaverse coming, the virtual world, all that stuff, when that's more appealing to be in that world than the real world, and kids grow up in that world, it's more appealing to be in it. So why wouldn't you be in it 24/7? That's what plays on my mind.
Yeah, I have to say I am observing from afar on that one, and I don't know on that one. That's a confusing one to me as to how that plays out, or does it come full circle and actually make it becomes so untenable that we go backwards to, like, in the lockdowns, the amount of people that took up running and walking and well-being and yoga, it kind of forced us to come back around to a proper existence. And the amount of people now that love working at home because they don't want to commute and they don't want to, like, so, and I don't really hate using the word reset because the conspiracy theorists get bent out of shape with that. So they do, don't they? Like,
there's always these triggering words.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I just say them for fun, just see what happens. But sometimes I think we need to reset ourselves. So, for argument's sake, we have all these stories where, you know, people suddenly they have a heart attack and they find themselves go, I'm not leading the right kind of life. Like, it feels like I actually, going back to your point, is I really think there's going to be far more benefits from this pandemic than negatives. Now, hear me out on this, because in the work I do, there are more questions being asked about the way we live our lives. Now, if we take away all the crazy and the nonsense and etc., we won't talk about that because we've done enough talking about that, is people now want to work from home so they can spend more time with their kids. They want to now work at home because they don't want to drive and carbon emissions, etc. They want to work at home because they can exercise more and get fitter and be healthier. You know, we like, I've been to like 3 or 4 meetings in person in the last 6 months, but then my business is around the world now, so I'm talking to people, and now it's normal. Like, there is amazing things that have come out of this. I've made some friendships from this that are unbelievable. So I actually think now we've got over everyone teaching how to use Zoom courses, which was a thing, which I found utterly bizarre. I actually think if we can just get over this slight weirdness that I think we are coming through, we're actually better off. And I know that sounds ridiculous and awful, but I do think we are. I think we've realized we like spending time with our families. I think we've realized that that job does suck and I want another job. And there's people that go, I don't want to do this job ever again. I'm gonna cut grass for a living. I think that can only be a good thing, don't you? I think we've gone, hold on, I'm 35, I'm 40, I'm 50, I'm 60. I want to really live my life differently. And I think that's what this has done. It's a shame there was so much pain to get there, but I think there's a lot of good come out of this. And if we observe and if we ask challenging questions, we can all benefit from that good. I really do. And that is absolutely not dismissing the destruction and the deaths and everything that goes with it. I'm not doing that. I'm saying this is a wake-up call, and we either need to listen or we do that, go back to the new normal. Because when you say new normal, you mean you want to go backwards to the life you had. Possibly wasn't that good anyway. So what are your opportunities now? You know, I think, so I agree with you. People are inherently good. And I think there are benefits to these challenges that we've gone through if we want to use them in that way, if we want to use that mindset. I think political systems are now going to be pulled apart. I think they've been so dire. I think we'll have more people standing up for their rights. I think we'll have less prejudice. You know, there is so much that we've broken, but it needed to be broken. I don't know. I think that might put a few people on the fence, but if we've got to look for a silver lining, I think there's some in there. That's my personal opinion.
It's definitely catalyzed these conversations and changed the way we think about how we work from home, remote, flexible, all the rest of it. So yeah, definitely from that point of view, I think it's a good thing. I think that we're heading in, or we're in a time now where employers don't have a choice about those conversations because they know, or the world has carried on in this new reality and we've had to adapt. And I think through that hardship, people they zoom out and they realize what is going right in my life, what is going wrong. They set the board straight and make sure that they can move forward. And I don't think we're out of the woods yet. There's a lot of pressures to come. We've got these economic challenges, health challenges, political challenges. So yeah, there's a lot of work to be done. But I definitely agree with you. There's I guess the way we operate now is that we're a lot more aware about some things and less aware about others. We're more aware about what our choices could be, but we're less aware about what the other side is saying, what we're what the solutions are. People want to be rah, jump on the bandwagon, but they don't like to try and come up with these ideas to bring everyone back together, bring everyone home. I've never seen Aotearoa more divided, unfortunately, in my lifetime, in my 3 decades on the planet. And it saddens me to say that, but I think through this hardship, good people will realize these problems and they'll step up. They'll have to. That's just the nature of the beast. And some of those ideas won't work, but they'll do the best with what they have got. And so, yeah, there's work to be done.
There is, but there will always be work to be done. But we've just got to be better at it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Awesome. Just zooming out a little, what kind of leader do you think you are? What's your strategy? What's your thinking behind how you operate?
Depends which state is. I used to be a terrible one. I used to be a horrendous leader. And I'm super aware of that. And I got into some trouble. Only
Why do you say that if you're not sharing?
Because it was because it was true. I had this misguided sense. So I'm not a natural business person. I come from a working class family. Business wasn't something we did. You did work jobs. You went to the like my parents got into the military to escape their lives. Let's not be crude about this, but I was lucky that they wanted something more for me. Sort of classic story. And I got into business because I knew better. I thought I knew better, and I probably held on to that principle for too long. And then I built my team, and I did the whole build a team, make more money, and it never ever sat right with me. If I look back, it didn't really feel right. And then one day I was sat in a car with a fantastic guy, Nick, who worked with me, and great human being, and he said, "Look, screw the rest of us. This has got to be something you want to do." And I realized I was doing everything for everyone else. And it was like, you make money to pay their wages and you make money to da-da-da. But it was very mechanical. Excuse me. And I was driving home one day and I thought, right, I'm going to pull the pin. I'm not happy. I hate this. But as soon as I did that, my brain went into another mode and went through the next version. And then I met my best mate, and we sort of started to have these long, deep conversation about stoicism and purpose, and really started to ask some big questions and actually critically think. And then I started to observe the business I was in. I started to observe the people we worked with, my motivations, and I actually started to realize my responsibility as a leader. So I'm open. I'm a very emotive person. I get that from my mum, but I'm quite hard as well. My dad comes from a tough background, so I've kind of got this soft edge. And what I've now realized is that, I used to be bad because my communication wasn't very good. It's all in here. I was filling in the gaps, and now I over communicate. I document more. I used to wing it a lot because I could, but other people couldn't. I started to learn to understand people more. Each person has their different ways of communicating. I understood the power of leadership, and I mean in every aspect of life, and the importance and the influence you have. I can change someone's life with the decisions I make and the way I react to things. And I always wanted someone, whenever they left the business, to feel that they were better than when they joined. So always investing in people. And then sort of 2.5 years ago, I really doubled down. I was like, I'm done with that life. I want this new version of life for me. And I started to get more selfish about what I wanted to do, and then reformed WG around this sort of a world of conscious leaders. So leaders that really were understanding and were really connected to what they were doing, and the people around them, and how that applied to the business I wanted to run. And that's my job now, and I love that. It's a difficult job, really difficult, and but that's okay because I like doing difficult things. And I read more, I educate myself more, I have that 2-second gap before I do something. I'm observing way more. You hear I use that word a lot. It's just looking at words, listening to words, looking at actions, looking at feelings. So I've become really interested in people, like really interested in people. And as a leader, I think, I don't know what label I would use, but that's sort of what I'm developing into. I'm generous, I'm kind, but I have clear expectations. I like to take people on the journey, but I also on my own journey. A lot of leaders get that wrong. They forget about themselves. So how can you have a happy business, successful business, if you're not happy yourself? And that's a big question. That's a hard question to answer. Luckily, I think I've got some of the answers now. And look, I focus on understanding. I've done some tough meeting on Friday with a CEO and his team, and my focus is helping them understand, facilitate, like you said, what both sides are thinking, and see if we can just open their eyes up a little bit and come up with a new plan. And then I like to be really practical, really clear, really focused. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what label I'd give myself. I think I'm authentic, and I hate the word because it's been ruined by marketers, as most things are. But
Yeah.
actually, no, I'm trying to be as authentic as I can, which is paradoxical. So that means I've got to understand myself more to therefore be more authentic. Does that make sense?
It does indeed.
Yeah.
Grant, we'll probably wrap up there, but if someone wants to reach out to you, how would they do it?
Look, I'm always happy to talk to people. So LinkedIn's the main one. That's sort of where I frequent the most and try not to piss people off. Otherwise, go to waking-giants.com and flick me a note. Try and keep them kind. But yeah. And if anyone wants to talk about the ideas, I'm more than open to it, and I'm more than happy to be proven wrong. Or maybe we don't need to be wrong. Maybe we just need to discuss them. Maybe that's the fun thing. Let's just discuss the ideas. And
Absolutely.
that's as much as it can be. But look, I really appreciate you stepping up, and like you say, you delivered. You said I want you on, and I'm excited to talk about these things, and I'm just hoping that more people ask more questions, and the more questions you ask, the more insight you get. And as long as you're asking questions, we all need to be 8-year-old girls asking why is that like that? Why is that like that? We do. We don't think like children.
Absolutely.
We need to. Yeah. So
Epic.
this is me.
Absolutely.
This is
strong messages. Yeah, it's been awesome to have you on the show. I don't know what to expect because I saw your post and you'd been cancelled for extreme views, and I genuinely didn't know. So, but I thought, let's give this guy a go and see what he comes on with. If he says something extreme, like I'll say something in the summary to wrap it all up and say, oh, okay, that was a bit of a minefield. But like, Grant, you're a bloody good egg. It was awesome to have you on the show. There were some really fundamental good values in there, and I think that what you're saying, like to me, it's common sense. It's about hearing the other people out. It's about coming to shared understandings and putting community over commerce, all that good stuff. Like I think there's it was just good messages. So I don't really understand why that board member said you couldn't come on the podcast. So it's been a pleasure having you here, and yeah, good luck with everything for the future. Hope we can stay in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. You're more than welcome, and thank you for listening to my ramblings. I'm very passionate about this stuff, so anytime I get to talk about it, I absolutely love it. And thanks for taking a chance on me. I reined it in a bit. Well, no, I didn't rein it in at all. Actually, that was just me. Like I've got nothing else to offer.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, bro. We'll catch you soon.
Thanks, man. Take care.
Well, good egg. That was good. I enjoyed that. 55 minutes of talking about leadership and what that's all about, and cancel culture and where the world's heading. I think that it's a very interesting area because, like we discussed, people aren't armed with the psychological tools or the communication tools to really to move forward with their life or to hear the other side out. And I think that can create a more divisive culture. It means that personally they don't develop as much as they could, and that comes to their detriment. So big ideas. I think that we all just need to understand each other a little bit more, especially where New Zealand is at the moment and the world. So with that in mind, I'll catch you guys later. Awesome. Peace.